Welcome to Unlikely Intersections, the podcast where intent, impact, and inquiry inspire our conversations. The interesting thing about intersections is that we all go through multiple intersections daily, and the way we navigate these determines the trajectory of our day and our life. Big time guest, Dr. Jackson with us today, local hero. What do you think?
Yes, we do. This is going to be a great podcast today. We have no one other than Mr. Brandon Bigg B. Hickman, who is a local Wilmingtonian, an influencer in the area, and a great mentor in the area. So we are so great to have him today.
Thank y'all, man. I'm honored. I'm honored to be here. I like y'all, man. You know what I'm saying?
That's always good, right?
Two great mentees in here, man. You know, in my circle. So, I'm blessed to be here. Thank y'all.
But, just give us a little bit about your background, your journey, how you got to where you are today.
Man, I am originally from Wilmington, North Carolina. Y'all know they don't make a lot of us. And I grew up right here, maybe about 4 blocks away from this particular building. I grew up on the north side. I went to New Hanover High School. I graduated. Band was my thing. I also grew up, 4 blocks that way, which would be Community Boys and Girls Club, 901 Nixon Street. So I just grew up in this area, and that's where that's where I love. And band propelled me to go to school. I was able to see bands like Port City Classic and all those things, but you had to go to school if you wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And so it propelled me into a scholarship to Norfolk State University. Went to Norfolk. I graduated from Norfolk State with a degree in minor in music media, major in business. And I then started teaching in Charleston, South Carolina. So I moved to Charleston, and I taught there for a while. Well, really, my very first big gig, I worked at Foot Action. So I worked in the mall in Charleston at Citadel Mall, and then I started teaching in Charleston County, which was Baptist Hill High School out in the county, near Young's Island and Edisto and Ravenel. So I started teaching out there. And then I came home a little after my stepfather passed away. I moved back home and started teaching, and I got into radio. I've always been a person that wanted to be in the community and wanted to serve the community. So that's like a little short thing, but that's what brought me back home. And since then, we've been trucking.
Well, now you're representing right there on your sweatshirt. I know that's an important organization too. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Better As Possible. Me and my wife started Better As Possible shortly after my mom passed away. My mom passed away in 2011, and I was depressed. I have to be very honest with you. I was Bigg B during the day, so I'm laughing and joking. Yeah. And then I get home and I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't talk to her. I just watched TV. It was almost like I was vegging out. And so she said, why don't you start this fashion show? Why don't we do a fashion show with your mom? And I was like, nope, we're not about to do that. I don't have time, And so I think she put it in other muses. And so people were coming to me, hey, man, why don't you do a fashion show? And I was like, all right, let's try it. And so this is 11 years later. So... and so we called it Better As Possible because I felt like every day I had a teacher at New Hanover High School named Dr. Emerson. She wasn't even Dr. Emerson then. She was just Miss Emerson. And Dr. Diane Emerson would stop us in the hall and be like, if better is possible, good is not enough. So did you really do the best you really could on this paper? Did you really do the best you could in class today? Like, not even being her student at one time, like she would just stop us in the hall. And it was that was very impactful on me. And I used to say it all the time. So we said, let's go with this. And we actually added her to our board and all that good stuff. So that's how we started Better As Possible. And from there, the Lillian Higgins Scholarship, Port City Written Runway, the Lillian Higgins Scholarship, Grits, Girls Rocking in the South, Man Up program. So we're doing, trying to continue to do things in the community like I think it should be.
That's awesome, Bigg B, because, you and I are both members of probably the most prestigious fraternity in the world, and that
Yes.
is Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated.
Yes.
And those are that's a part of the charge
It is.
of being a member, is to work in the community, to uplift of your fellow man. You just said something real interesting about if better is possible, good is not enough. And you
Right.
told a story about Dr. Emerson, who I'm familiar with, and Dr. Brown is familiar with. But it reminded me of a story of Henry Kissinger. He had an assistant, and he asked him to write a paper. And as the assistant wrote the paper, he then submitted it to Henry Kissinger. And Henry Kissinger sent it back to him and said, "Is this the best you can do?" And the assistant got it back, took a look over it, went over it, made some modifications to the paper, sent it back. And Henry Kissinger sent it back and said, "Is this the best that you can do?" And the guy was kind of puzzled, and he said, "I need to have a meeting with you, Dr. Kissinger, so we can talk about this." And he went in to meet with Henry Kissinger, and he said, "Well, I'm not quite understanding what you want." He said, "I asked you if this is best you can do because I didn't read the paper. I just wanted to go ahead and have you write it and submit it. So is this the best you can do?" So that speaks to doing the best that you can do every time, because you really don't know if the person you submitted to is reading it or not. But is this your best?
Right.
Right. So that's a good mantra to kind of have. Tell us a little bit about the recent work you've been doing, in the community, because I'm always interested in hearing about that.
I think right now what's on my plate is definitely helping. I sit on the board for the Southeastern Boys and Girls Club now. That was a major role where and I don't like saying merge, I like to say unify. How big is that to unify a club, two clubs that historically, and we have to be very transparent, historically, I'm not going to say didn't get along, but historically, we know why there were two clubs. And so I sit on that board right now, and I sit on one other in my neighborhood, in the neighborhood I grew up in, and that's the Northside Food Co-op. Very important. The only grocery store I knew was on the corner right here, Miss Ruth store. Miss Ruth would let you you could buy a slice of bread, Dr. Brown. You could buy a slice of hoop cheese. Like, you could buy the slice, not the whole bag. She would feed the neighborhood. So that's the only thing I knew as a grocery store. I know you go to Park at that time, Parker's, Hills, whatever we called it, Wilson's. We go to that grocery store, but you had to drive out. I'm talking about walk to the grocery store. That was the only grocery store I knew. So I sit on those two boards. And I think this is important to our community, that we have food on the side and healthy choices, and not just, and this no punch, I'm not going to say the name of the store, but a store that is only $1. I mean, but I'm just saying, I think there's more healthy choices with us having a grocery store in our neighborhood.
Yes.
And it also is going to bring some opportunities to different folks, whether it's jobs, pharmacists, whatever it can be. We're going to have that in the neighborhood, and I'm excited about that. So those are some of the recent things. Of course, we still are Rip the Runway. We just had that last month, and we're getting ready to send out applications, scholarship applications, so kids can, I like to say young adults can go ahead and apply for the scholarship. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So those are the things I'm doing now.
How many scholarships have y'all given out now? I mean, it's got to be a bunch. 11 years and...
I think we are on 16. It's about $16,000. A little bit was more than $16,000. 16 scholarships though.
Wow.
Yeah. So some kids have received 500, some 2,000, 3,000, like that. So we've been excited to bless some I guess incoming freshmen, because I feel like if I can get you there, and you have a little bit of extra, with your financial aid, you'll stay longer at school. If you just don't have to worry about that first year, then you'll stay a little bit longer, and hopefully graduate. Period. Yeah.
I know that music is a love of yours. Being the DJ on the radio. Here's a question I have. That's we're not going to find any answers here.
Okay.
But I think it's great for dialogue, simply because, when I grew up, I was a huge Parliament Funkadelic fan, right? Mm-hmm. And my mother and them listened to that music and said, that's the devil's music and this and that, and what are they talking about, right?
Right.
It was the evolution of music, just like the Flower Children, and people looked at them and now we have, I'm going to say rap, not hip hop, because it's not really hip hop, it's rap. Okay. And we listen to the lyrics, and we play the lyrics on the radio, and the people listen, and there's behavior that's driven by some of those lyrics. How do you feel in the business you're in around playing that music, that style, but then having to get in the streets to do the work to help people understand that this is just entertainment? It's not reality. So you can listen to this, but this is not meant to be lived out. How do you deal with that? How do you reconcile that?
Oh, that is a great question, Brother Jackson. So the very first thing, like you said, you grew up listening to Parliament, right?
Right.
And so your parents like, man, get that out of here. So,
Right. That's right. That's right.
And before that, it was Puff the Magic Dragon.
That's right.
Nobody knew they were talking about smoking weed. I mean, we have to be very honest with ourselves, right?
That's right.
So I remember vividly my mom saying, I'm playing Planet Rock and some other things. And my grandma and my mom like, get that beat-bop, beat-bop, out of here.
That's right.
That's only going to be a fad.
Yeah.
And now it's 50 years later. You know what I'm saying? Hip-hop is 50 years old this year. So I'm glad you acknowledged that. As rap music evolves, a lot of people say, well, it's mumble rap. It's not hip-hop. It's not the culture. But it's what, if we look at rap and we look at hip-hop culture, it's always been the youth that has been the driving force of this, right?
Right.
If this is what they like, then they're driving the bus. So we got to okay, I mean, that's cool. So there are some negative things that we do here. I am able to get on a programming call every Monday and say, I don't know about this one. I'm going to have to day part this one to nights. I'm going to have to day part this one to afternoons or whatever it may be. So we do have a choice in what we kind of pull. But, excuse me, there are some messages in there, you're like, oh, man. Is this what they're seeing, though? Is this what the youth are seeing? Because people say when we were listening to hip-hop, it was the black CNN. It was the very first time that Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five said, hey, this is where we live. People on the stairs pissing everywhere. And they seem like they just don't care. That's from the message. That's the actual lyric from the message.
That's right.
Don't push me because I'm close to the edge. So that was the first time you were able to see African-American youth and where they lived. Actually on the video, one of the first hip-hop videos. So is this what they're seeing? And the second thing is, are they lying? Because you just said, is it facade? And sometimes it is facade. These things are facade. I talked about the other day, I have an older nephew, and I'm gonna tell his business. And he had moved to Wilmington, and he was staying with us for a little bit. And he said, yeah, man, I'm from where the roaches be, blah, 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 I'm in the streets. And I was like, no, man, you from Somerville.
That's right.
What are you talking about?
That's right.
He's like, but it sounds like real hard. I said, no, you're from Somerville, South Carolina, man. Don't do that. So,
that's right.
But we had a good time, and we were able to, I guess, differentiate what was real and what was not. My work in the community means that I want you to have the best record, and this is on the independent side. When I talk to other musicians, other rappers in the industry, other singers, I want you to have the best music. I don't want you to depress or kind of compact who you are, but I want you to be real, but I want you to give a message, and I want it to be the best message and the best song and the best quality because you represent Wilmington. So that's where I go into that. When I go into the community, I do say this. Sometimes it is a facade, and there's a time and a place for everything that we have as far as music is concerned. And when we do that, when we're able to tell them that, when we tell artists that, when we tell youth that, then they kind of step back and say, okay, maybe this is not the time to say, I used to shoot people up. I like, nah, not really, not at 4:00 in the afternoon. Maybe we could do that a little later in the club scene. But why don't you make a record for radio?
Right.
And that's really large. Like, if you can make a record for radio, I tell them all the time, if a woman can sing to your song and she remembers it, you got a hit. Mm-hmm. That's what you got. So, yes, it is conflicting at times. Mm-hmm. It is conflicting at times. Even sometimes I like that song, or I'll hear a song, I'm like, oh my God, do we got to play this right now? Mm-hmm. Can I day part it? And what day party means is I only play it at a certain time in the evening. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Hopefully, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
good. That's always a tricky topic, it's whatever we,
But it's a good,
we immerse ourselves in whatever it is and often move toward that, so that's a question that Terry and I have kind of touched on a couple other times is, what does this actually mean? How do you make better as possible if you're fully immersed in something that sounds like it ain't very good?
Right.
Because it could be something that we like as well, right?
Yeah, it could be.
But being mindful that we are parents, right? And we have to, but we're trying to set a good example as well, right? And so, I might have my headphones on when I'm listening to that so that nobody else can hear it.
Yeah.
Because I like the song, I like the beat. But it's about those who come after us and how do we make life better for those who come after us, right? And make it more positive, and to understand that, there might be some validity or some realness to it.
Right.
But for the most part, it's entertainment. It
is. And you have to also ask your question, or ask my community members or guys that grew up in my neighborhood or around my neighborhood. What do you get out of it?
Right.
What are you getting out of it? Are you getting motivation out of it? Or are you getting the plan to do something else? Right. What are you getting out of it? If you're not getting any motivation out of it to do better, to be better, then, why are we here?
Right.
Yeah, it kind of, music puts us in the empathy space a lot of times, right? And so, I think about a lot of the music that I'm attracted to and have been all my life. I haven't really lived much of that.
Right.
Not really. But I do see it as motivational, as aspirational sometimes.
That's right.
And frankly, to be avoided sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think there is definitely a message that adults can carry that's separate from the music, right? That life is not the music.
Right.
That's right.
That is totally right. That's totally right. Yeah.
Right.
That's cool.
Because I've always been into the lyrics, right? Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, even though I was a big Parliament Funkadelic fan, I'm listening for the story. I'm always, coming up, being born in the 60s and hearing all that Motown, the Marvin Gaye and the OJs and Stevie Wonder, it was about the message that they were delivering at the time from the late 60s and the 70s. And so, of course, it was a positive message, and it was a message about love.
Yeah, I was going to say, we were in love.
Yeah, it was about love, right?
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed the ballads, the slow songs, because of the stories more than I did, the dance, the dance.
Right.
But so with me, I'm in love with words. And when I hear the lyrics today, I have to ask my daughter, what are they talking about?
Right.
Because I don't understand. Please. And often it's a code, right?
Right.
I might think it means one thing, and when I ask somebody younger, no, this is what it really means. And I'm like, you throwing me off now, right?
And like I said before, hip hop is the youth were always the driving force of that.
That's right.
And so it's always good to sit down with someone a little younger than you and be like, man, what are you talking about? What that mean?
That's right.
And they'll tell you. The kid's like, man, like my nephew, bro, man, this means so and so. I like, oh, word?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see you like that song? I don't know. I don't really like that song. And in my mind, I'm like, thank you, Lord. I said, okay.
Yeah.
But he's my litmus paper test.
Yes.
A lot of times when I'm talking to him about records, I say, you like this record? You like this record? And he's like, no, I like this. And we have to also, I know we talk about radio a lot, but YouTube is.
Ooh, yes. Uh-huh.
I see them on YouTube all day. That's their radio now. Like almost, And we might be, let me knock on wood. We're not the dinosaur yet, but we might be the dinosaur. But they hit YouTube and just search, and there's certain songs that are like got 40, 50 million views. I never heard of the song before.
That's right.
I'm like, good gracious. So that the digital aspect of this is way wide. You know, it's worldwide.
That's
basically.
right. That's right. That's right. You know, that's why I like talking to the youth.
Yes.
Because they keep me relevant,
Yes,
right? If
definitely.
I really want to find something out, go ask my daughter or go ask, nieces and nephews, what is this really? What's on your mind?
Right,
Really?
right.
So because we have to, as long as we're on this earth, we have to remain relevant.
Correct.
And
correct.
in order to do so, it means the conversation. And what you said about it was all the youth has always been the drivers. If we go back to the '60s with Dr. King, he was very young.
Yes.
Malcolm was young. Medgar Evers were young. All of those movements that when you look at the Flower Children, all of those were young people,
Yes.
and so we have to be mindful of what we not only feed the body, but what we feed the mind.
Yes.
And that's the distinction of what's happening, quote unquote, in the streets today. What are the minds being fed?
Right.
Because when I ask a lot of youth, so tell me what you're reading, I don't get a whole lot of responses.
What's the last book you read?
Yeah, I don't get a lot of
tough.
responses, right? But what are you listening to? Oh, man, they start giving me a whole library of music that they're listening to, much of what I haven't heard because it's underground.
Right. And I think that's important to say, just reading, period.
Yes.
Is important. And so my push sometimes is more on a comic level to read a comic book, and maybe that'll spark the interest. Oh, by the way, have you read this? And that's how I kind of started with Ike. I was like, hey, here's some comic books. Here's a graphic novel. Here's this. Have you read this book right here? No. I was like, you should try it out. You should try it out during the summer. Turn the TV off. Let's see if we can get it.
What's interesting that you said that.
Excuse me.
There's research that says that for children who grow up reading comic books, their ability to read is much greater than those who chose or who didn't get the opportunity to read comic books. So there's a lot of validity to what you're saying, whether you know it or not. Yes.
Yeah, I just, because it's a little bit more, it's something I might like. It's anime or it's, Marvel or something like that. I want to read this. I want to see what's in the story. And if I can get you a graphic novel, which is a little bit more expensive than just that one little flip page, it's like, it might be 6 or 7 volumes in there. They'll read through that and he'll burn through that, or, whoever I give it to, he'll burn through that. And I was like, we'll try this one. And so hopefully that helps. But I do think that reading is important because that's what I did. I mean, I had the little thing where you had to read 10 books a week at the library during the summertime. And I would walk down there, and I'm going to tell the truth. I used to walk to the library where it's at right now, but I do remember when the library was on Market Street. I was little then. Y'all know what I'm talking about. It was on Market Street. And then where the library was Belk's.
That's right.
So y'all know what I'm saying.
That's right. That's right.
And so I would be there, and one reason I was there because my grandmama's house was hot, and they had great cool air in the library during the summer. So I would go there and stay there all day and read books and have a good time. But that's what I was. That's what I did. Inside the neighborhood I was in, and you could get away. You get away. I could go anywhere I wanted to go inside of that book during that time. So I think it's very important.
Yeah, it's interesting because this whole concept of getting young people to read, in a way, is like asking them to slow down in a world that's getting faster and faster with the availability of YouTube and all of that kind of stuff. And we know from brain science that those periods of downtime, that meditative time, if you will, but those times where things are slowed down are really important to further development, and so it's fascinating to me that reading remains relevant, right?
Yes.
And I personally read. I mean, I read a lot of times a book a day.
Man, okay.
But certainly several a week,
Right.
and often have multiple books going at the same time. Terry and I share the sort of same passion, and so I knew from a very early age that reading opened the whole world to me, and everything I've basically been able to do or accomplish came really through the gateway of being a good reader.
That's
right.
And that's our challenge when we talk about locally. we know we got some gaps, because I want to make sure we touch a little bit on some local pieces, so we know we have some reading gaps in our schools that we got to figure out some solutions.
Right. I do feel what they have going on in certain classrooms in certain schools where they're asking community leaders to come in and read. So you see someone that you may know in the community that you have respect for, or you're being introduced to them for the first time. You might have heard, oh, I know the mayor. I've heard of the mayor, but I've never seen him. Or I've heard of this person, I've never seen them, but they come into your classroom and read is major. So shouts out to those people that are doing that in their classrooms, like Nathaniel Johnson at Virgo, and some folks over there at Snipes, Dr. Willis over there at Snipes. So you have folks that are coming in to read, which is important. But then we have to actually practice it. So now we got to get our students practicing reading. Let's take this 1 hour before. I remember when I was still teaching at Murray, there was a period before school started. So school would start, I guess we started at 7:30 at one time, and from 7:30 to 8:30, you would have a window where you would read before school even, the regular classes started. School started, but before regular classes started, you would read. And what I would do, I think we read, in my one of my classes, we read this book called The Moves Make the Man. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of that, but it was about a young man here in Wilmington, and they played basketball at Chestnut Street Junior High School. And so the kids were able to see themselves inside of this book. Oh, this is from Wilmington, and this is what was happening. And they dealt with racial issues. And inside of the book, I would read a chapter, and then I would let them read the chapter. Then I would read the chapter, then let them read the chapter to themselves. So I think that's important. Those things, when you start practicing that, I think it helps a lot.
Yeah, I would agree. I never went to the public library as a child. My first library card from the public library, I was in college.
Oh, wow.
I did a lot of reading in school. I'll give you a quick little story. I remember being promoted to the fifth grade, right? And in the fifth grade, there were 3 reading groups, A, B, and C. Of course, A being the best, B. And so I'm a competitive young guy because I like sports.
Okay.
And so I land in the B. I land in the B group, and I'm looking at the A group. I'm like, why am I in there? Why am I in the B group? I should be in the A group. So I remember focusing, improving my skills. It was my competitiveness that drove me in sports that drove me to want to be in the A group because I wanted to be amongst the best, the first. So by midway the year, I had ascended to
Oh, wow. That's cool.
the A group, right?
Yeah, that's big, yeah.
And so with that, just that not ever having gone to the library as a child, right? There was something in me, Sports Illustrated. I love reading. Anything sports related. And so that drove my passion for reading. And then, of course, in school, you read the others because you're in the gifted and talented kind of. And, I was able to kind of use sports to propel for me the academic side of the whole competition. If I can compete with you on the field, I should be able to compete with you in the classroom. So that's what my driver was, right? And my mother said, well, hey, if you don't get good grades, you can't play sports. And that was just out of the realm of reality for me. I was going to play ball. Yeah, exactly. And so we have to be able to somehow find something to inspire the kids around what they love, whether it's sports, to get them to connect to academics, whether it's the music and the lyrics and being able to read and write, to be able to understand, and even if it's comedy, right? Because we know that comedians have to be well-read to be able to put together their jokes, right?
Absolutely.
You listen to Dave Chappelle and those guys.
It's current events.
Yes, it is.
You got to read the newspaper.
And so you got exactly.
Right.
So we have to find a way to inspire them, given whatever they like,
Right.
to be able to get them to read.
Yeah,
more.
for me, like coming up, like from a super early age, 3rd, 4th grade, with breakfast, I was reading the sports page,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and I did that basically all the way through high school. Like, first thing, I'm gonna go grab that paper and I'm gonna read the sports page. Sometimes even the box scores.
That's right.
Because
That's
I
right.
wanted to see.
That's right.
Back then, it's not like the paper now. You actually got news up to about 11 o'clock. You know, so
Right.
That's right. That's
you know
right.
you would see
It was
how,
somebody sitting in there.
yeah,
waiting.
how everybody did. You know, the night before and all of that.
Right.
And I read that every day, and pretty soon it got to be a thing where I read to relax now. You know, like it's a part of just sort of settling myself into something around that reading. But I think the theme that we've been talking about, whether it's the comic books, whether it's Chestnut Street School, whether it's Sports Illustrated or
Right.
Sports Page, is that reading that is relevant to what's important to you right now.
Exactly.
right.
And you know, the thing that we got in Wilmington that I think has a lot of relevance in North Side or South Side or even East Wilmington is our history.
Big.
And you
Always
know,
big,
while
yeah.
there are some sources of reading out there, it's not what it could be based on the history.
That's
Correct.
Right. And so just think about how, you know, I wonder if there's a way, I'm sure there is a way, but I wonder what the way would be to put some of that in print in ways that gave folks the sort of the deep roots in the culture that has been here for all these years.
I think that's super important, and to see it on paper. I know you probably hear about it. Because my grandmother used to tell, you know, my grandmother was a great oralist. You know, like she'd tell you this oral history. But then when you read it, I was like, oh, grandma was for real. You know, so like grandma was for real when she said this, you know?
That's right. That's
And
right.
I remember doing this thing. It was a project. And I think I might have been, I don't know what grade I was in, but it asked you a bunch of questions. Who's from your neighborhood that's famous? Who's from your so-and-so that's famous? And I remember filling it out. But I went to the library, and they was like, who's from your neighborhood famous? And I was like, Meadowlark Lemon. And I was able to, you know, write these things down. And my teacher thought I was telling a tale. And I was like, no, I'm for real. Like, Meadowlark Lemon is from my neighborhood.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So I was able to go through that, but it was in the archives at that time at the library. It's a little, you know, small. That room was small at that time. You could go in and like, who's this? Where are they from? And so it's important when they see that history on paper.
Yes.
We could talk about it all day.
Yes.
Like I fuss all day in the house, but when he hears it from someone else, he's
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. I'm like, wait a minute.
It's hard to be a
just
prophet
said
in your own
that,
land.
That's right.
I'm like, I know I just said that.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like, I just said that, you know. Anyway, I think it's important that we see that on paper to inspire us to be the great people that we can be.
Right.
Because those folks and individuals in the history of Wilmington were great in a time where you couldn't be great.
That's right.
Or it was very, very hard to be great. Let's say
right.
that.
That's
I'll
right.
say that. It was very hard to be great at that time. So, you know, I always tell the story. I was like, yo, man, check this out. All right, so I'm from Taylor Homes, right? One of the oldest housing projects in America at that time.
Yes.
Right? So Robert Taylor, and I was like, yo, so Robert Taylor
Yep.
went to MIT, one of the first African Americans to be licensed as an architect, period. And built these, what at that time we would call affordable housing. Let's be very honest, it was the projects.
Right.
He built projects there was a Robert Taylor Homes in Chicago, which is torn down now. And then there was one here in Wilmington. And of course, he did this thing with Booker T. Washington and Tuskegee. You actually can go to the Robert Taylor School of Architecture in Tuskegee. You learn all this stuff, right? And then I say, yo, but check it out. Let's fast forward. Maybe I'm not gonna say 100 years, but let's fast forward. Maybe 80 years later. It might be 100 years. I'll give you 100. Let's fast forward 100 years, and a young man that grows up around that area, goes to school, goes to Williston, graduates, gets an architectural degree, and I don't know what else degree he got, but he becomes the chancellor of MIT from the same city. How big is that? And so when you start giving those 360s and 180s and what happened, I think it makes you interested in like history. But that's my thing. I love history. but it makes them interested in to read. Like, oh, right, that happened. Like, yo, look at this. Come see it. Look, it's in this book.
Yeah, it's interesting because yesterday I gave a presentation at the library.
Okay.
To the historical organization that's looking to help restore Giblin Lodge, the Masonic Lodge, because I'm a member of Giblin number 2.
Okay.
And I was asked to give a presentation, and so as I was preparing for the presentation, I'm going back through history.
Yes.
And I began to see names that I didn't I didn't realize were associated with Giblin number 2. I looked down the list of the Grand Master, Grand Worshipful Master, and I look at James E. Shepard. I said, wow. Now, James E. Shepard was the founder of North Carolina Central University.
Yes.
And I see names like Howard Clement, and I see Telfair, and I see Galloway, the famous from history. Is it Robert Galloway from Southport who stole the ship?
Oh, wow.
Abraham Galloway.
Abraham
Galloway,
Galloway,
yeah.
who stole the ship. And I was like, wow, he was affiliated with Giblin number 2, which is the second oldest African-American Masonic lodge in the state of North Carolina, built in 1871 from freed slaves. But if you go to the history before that with Prince Hall living in Boston, he was part of, I guess, the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
And so he was the one who started it all, and I'm going through all of this history that I'm learning for the first time at this age to give the presentation, right?
Right.
And so there was so much that was touched upon. I didn't realize that the lodge was the first African-American library in the city in 1871. It was a city market in 1871. It was also a cleaners. I didn't realize, all the history that was there with that lodge. And then come to find out in the 1930s, you see a picture, at least I saw a picture of a well-integrated staff who worked there with the cleaners.
Wow.
And I was like, I didn't realize all this history was behind Giblin number 2, and it's worthwhile, its worthiness of being saved, right?
Oh, yes.
And so just that alone, and again, I was a member, but we didn't go through the history, and I am a member of Giblin number 2, but we didn't go through the history from a historical perspective. We talked about it from a Masonic perspective, but now when you expand and you begin to see it from a historical perspective, and it's history for Wilmington, for North Carolina, and for the United States, it played an integral part because, of course, think about this. They didn't attempt to burn it down during 1898.
No.
There was something about it being a Masonic lodge that did not, that caused them to stay away from the Masonic lodge and didn't burn it down, even though they knew of all the meetings that were going on there. But for whatever reason, they left it alone.
That's heavy. That's heavy for real. I'm like, what? You about to go make me look that up, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
I was amazed by all of that yesterday because UNCW, it was a part of UNCW's.
That is the original building that is still there.
That is the
It's
original
never
building.
been touched.
The cornerstone is right there, 1871. I remember when I went through the initiation process, one of the first things I wanted to do was to see the cornerstone. Right. And so UNCW's heading it up. There was a Dr. Julius Jones there. The
And
young lady.
Professor of History.
Yeah, and I can't think of her name, Professor. She was over she's actually over the School of History, the business history department out there. Because we had an interesting conversation of how do you connect business to history and history to business, right? So she and I are toying with that because it's of interest. But yeah, it was a great presentation. It was a full house, and I think the word got out yesterday. Yeah.
That's big. But I really feel that if we can show them inside of the context and then show them, like, this is the building, this is what happened right here on this corner, this is where so-and-so lived, and then, read about them right here. Here you go. I think that helps out as well.
Yeah.
Even if they stumble over the words, I'm like, read it with a dictionary next to you. And I was always told that.
I think what you said was most important. At that time in the 1800s, these people were great when it was a difficult time to be great, right?
Yes.
What they did, the courage And we've talked about courage on many episodes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The courage that they had to display to do what they did, given the times.
I agree. I totally agree with that. I guess, I don't know if it could have been me. I don't know. It could have been me. I don't know. But it's a lot of stories in the city.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I could have did that. I just don't see it. And I talk about it often about my, I don't know if y'all ever seen the movie The Help.
Yes.
Yeah.
I watched The Help almost in tears because it was my grandma. My grandma worked in Forest Hills for years. My grandmother working in Forest Hills was able to send my mother to Fayetteville State. And I would hear my grandma talk about it, like how she went from coveralls and, dusting and cleaning to a white uniform. She said that. She said it was almost like you having a car. Like if you had a maid, it was almost like you having a car. You had to help. And I was like, wow, Grandma, you put up with that? She said, yeah, I did that because we needed to eat. And so I would hear my grandmother talk about those things and the courage that she had as far as to, sometimes not being able to make the bus and had to walk from right here on McCray Street to 20 or 24th and Market. That's a little ways.
Yeah.
So that was always a big thing for me to see her, like a local, someone in my life, in my house, that had the courage and did the things that she did.
Yeah.
So that brings that kind of gets us to the question. Here we got 3 Wilmingtonians here, a rarity.
Right.
That's true.
But that question of courage of what's needed now, really, I think is a salient question, right? Like,
Yeah.
what does courage look like now to take us to a better place in the future? What can Wilmington look like in 2030, 2040? God willing, we're still here.
Right. To answer that question, Dr. Brown, I think we have to be very open and honest with our youth. And I told this story. We were all together. Matter of fact, I told this story. We were at the rededication of the pool, Earl Jackson Pool, and I know it had. And I'm talking about courage here as well. I know it had to be a courageous thing for Papa Jack. We're talking about Earl Jackson. We call him Papa Jack. For Papa Jack, I know in his mind, how can I tell this young man he's not the best athlete, but he's gifted at music? And he was able to come to me, and we were in the gym, and I'm running and trying to lay up and shoot and all this stuff. And he said, you know what? You're really good on them drums. He said this is a real conversation. And he said, you're really good. You're really good in the music side. You're really good. Like, you're excellent. And I was in my mind, I was like, thank you, Papa Jack. And I thought about, like, I can't play basketball.
That's what he was really telling you, right?
No, I can't play basketball.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, I got you. So, but his compliment also, he didn't stop there. He would come in and pop in and go, oh, that was good. What's the name of that cadence? Oh, we call it Papa Jack. Like, to this day, we have a cadence named Papa Jack. And so, with that being said, I think, or I know for sure, it's us kind of instilling and saying, you got it. This is what you do. You're the best at it. I think we still have to do that now. So that's one thing as we go forward into the future. I think we got to tell youth, you're good at that. That's what you're good at. That's the ticket right there. And so let's keep going with this. What else do we need to do to develop you? How can I help develop you even more in this, whatever it may be, whether it's sports, whether it's academia or both, or, everybody can't go to a 4-year institution.
Right.
And I see that now even more. Right. But if you're good and you like putting things together, let's talk about construction. You like to draw, you like to put things in. Maybe let's talk about architecture. Let's talk about, plumbing. Let's talk about some things that you can make $100 for me to show up and tell you that it's broke before I even start.
That's right.
So let's go. That first console is $100, but then it's going to be, a minimum of 4 hours for me to just be there, and that's $400. But if I got 10 of them in a day, man,
That's right.
So we actually have to show our youth, okay, you're going to have the courage to say, this is me. This is what I do. Because a lot of times when we're young, we kind of want to go with the flow. Like, oh, so-and-so going here. I'm going to go here too. Right. Oh, so-and-so going here. I'm going to go there too. What we want to do is say, hey, this is your thing. This is what you're good at. And be the best at it you can be. And I think when we have the courage and to give the courage to others, especially our youth, I think when they get in their zone, in their lane, I think they do well.
Yeah, I would agree with you of finding out what it is that you're good at. And then if you're going to add the reading, you begin reading around that specific topic, whatever it is, right?
Definitely.
And you immerse yourself in it to become the best in it. And, when I say the best, not necessarily competing with anyone else, but the best that you can become in it, and understand the importance of studying your craft, right? There's a great book by Robert Greene called Personal Mastery, and he talks about that, the apprenticeship that is needed in order to become the best at who you are and what you are. And for some people, it's about stepping up and becoming bigger, not playing small, right? I've been discovering, whether or not you guys believe it or not, but I've been discovering that in the CPM for me.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And I think I kind of mentioned it when we were at the MLK Center for Dr. Martin. I said, I said I was doing some things, but I need to step up more. I need to speak up more. I need to use whatever platform I have.
Right.
Because it's about the youth seeing someone who's done something that at least they consider having done something that they can see and touch and feel and hear them speak. Right.
And you know what? I think sometimes we're scared, and I'm just talking on the youth side. We have been scared. I'm just going to use mine. I was nervous to be the kid that walks through Taylor Homes with my trombone. I didn't know what they was going to pick because they did. Man, what you got, a banjo or something like that? And I was like, no, it's my horn, But you got to be able to, hey, look, people going to talk about you. They're going to clown. We got to be able to take that because I think now, that's disrespectful. We about to fight. No. Yeah. Kids are going to clown. It's going to happen. But if you stay the course, it's all going to work out. And so I have a good friend, man. I promise you, from this neighborhood. And I call him out all the time. My man Gruff, man. And so Gruff, he tells people all the time, we knew he was going to do something with that music because he used to have that trombone every day, man. We knew he was going to do something with music. But that was because I just stayed the course, and I just took that. I was like, yeah, y'all clown. I clown back too. And fight going down, they would send me home. Bro, you need to go into the house. Your grandma gonna get you. What do you mean? I'm down. This the north side. Let's go. Let's ride out. They were like, nah, bro, you schoolboy. Go into the house.
Yeah, that's right.
But they understood it, and I was cool with that. Because they didn't want me to get in trouble. So I was always cool with that. But they even knew, like, his trajectory is a little different than ours.
That's right.
So, you going home, we got you.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to stand solid.
They would send me home. I'm like, oh, thank you. I gotta fight them.
Yeah. So when you came to that intersection,
I was down.
Yeah, take a left.
Yeah, that's right.
I was down. I was like, yeah, let's go. And they were like, go home. I was like, all right. You don't have to tell me twice, but I think once our youth get into a situation where they're comfortable with being exactly who they are, I think they propel themselves at all times. I always use Ike, my nephew, as that person. I'm in the grocery store. I see my old football coach from like Pop Warner, and he sees Ike, and Ike is 6 feet tall, and he's, man, what you doing? Where you play football at? And Ike said, he looked at him, he said, I swim, that's what I do. And I was like, I didn't say anything, but it made me proud because at that moment, he knew exactly what his lane is. He knew exactly what he likes to do. He knew who he was in that moment. He was like, I swim. That's what I do.
And that's so that's act of courage, right?
Right.
That's the real courage is to find that comfort with who you really want to be at the time. And not succumb to the discomfort of the pressure.
Right.
And it really, as you were talking, Terry, it really reminded me on this concept of mastery.
Mm-hmm.
The best only have themselves to compete with.
That's right.
That's
That's right.
like if
right.
if you're the best, you're really not competing with anybody else except the next version of you.
That's it.
And we see examples of that from Wilmington all over the place. I mean, Meadowlark,
That's
the
right.
best entertainer
That's
there
right.
ever was on a global scale.
Yes.
At a time where who could have imagined,
Mm-hmm.
right? Michael Jordan, lots of others,
Mm-hmm.
Taylor. I mean, all these kind of things. We have plenty of bests from here.
Yes. Right.
And so it's certainly possible.
Yeah. 100%.
It's amazing because people ask me, so what model should we use to accomplish this? I said, well, you don't have to recreate it. All you do is have to look around. The models are already there. They're already in existence. You take a couple of models that are already in existence, you combine them together, and you create a model that's better than either one of them together, right? Are separate. And so several months ago, I started a book club.
Okay.
Right? It was about vision. And so people probably heard book, and the first couple sessions went well, right? But I think the word books got in the way, right? When really it was truly to be a conversation of black men. Because there's a gap in communication. You can go 18 to 25, right? And then when you get 26 to maybe 35, there are gaps in communication because there are gaps in understanding because you're talking about different generations. My goal was to begin to have all of these generations get in one room and to have a conversation around what it means to be a black man.
I think that's big, and I have this conversation a lot. And my conversation, it might be on the same road as that, but I think, and I have to give you an example. We thought Coach Murphy was going to be here forever.
Yes, we did.
We thought Coach Murphy was going to be here forever, and we never. I'm not going to say never, but we looked around like, who's next?
That's right.
But we didn't do who's next.
That's right.
Until Coach Murphy passed away. You know what I'm saying? Or when he was getting ready to retire. And even when he retired, he returned to the Martin Luther King Center. We thought Pop Jack was going to be here forever. And everybody was like, well, maybe Bobo next. So we don't know. We don't know. But did we lose something where they didn't say, okay, get ready. Get ready. Get ready to be next. And I think that became a gap. And I always work at trying to close that. Shouts out to Rashad Gaddison and Jared Gaddison and Cedric and all those guys that are younger than me. When I tell them, I'm like, oh, y'all need to go ahead and get ready. I was like, B can't be here forever, but you need to be ready in the community now. And so I always tell them, y'all up, because I didn't hear that, but I kind of felt like it's coming.
In my analysis of African American organizations throughout the country, local leadership all over the country, the number one gap I saw was succession planning. We don't prepare people or leaders within the community to continue to lead and take it to the next level. As we look at, we're always sitting around wondering, because I grew up under Murphy too. And so going up to the center every day, and regardless of who you were, when you went in that building, you knew he was the man in there, right?
Exactly.
And so with that, we didn't develop the next Murphy and the next Papa Jack, because for whatever reason, some people, and not to say that Mr. Murphy was his way, because he wasn't. For some people, it's about the notoriety that they receive and them wanting to be the one, right? I can say that's happened in our fraternity in the local chapter initially, because I remember from years ago, right? We didn't have that succession planning in place, and we really didn't go through
Because you thought Dr. Eaton was going to be around for years.
Exactly. And we just don't. We didn't see it, right?
Yeah.
But we have to begin to see it and understand the importance of it,
Right.
and begin to implement it, whether it's formal succession planning or just pulling somebody under your wing and saying, "Hey, let me mentor you."
That's how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we have to begin to do that, because I've analyzed this, because it's really about given the time, how are we still where we are,
Right.
when we know we should be further.
Right.
And you got to look at leadership. And so that means succession planning and leadership development, right?
Right.
Yeah, all of those kinds of things.
You want them to be leaders, but you want their eyes.
Yes.
This is the way I did it. I want you to do it, but use your eyes and use your filter. And how can that be better?
Yeah.
So that's always a big thing.
Yep.
Power of giving away power. We got an
that's
episode
right.
on that
That's
a while
okay.
back.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
The
Yeah,
whole
no, I'm jumping-
concept of how, like we're so much stronger together in different ways
100%.
when we value people's strengths, when we basically allow a range of possibility based on
Right.
that person's strengths, and then the collective ends up being just dramatically different. That's really one of the recipes for transformation, right?
right.
Transformation
That's right.
is hard to achieve as an individual, but it's incredibly possible when you have a group working together.
I totally agree. Just being in radio and being in the industry, for a fact, we shut down. When we get ready to shut down, you hit me up and said, B, you can't be outside. They're wilding out. Mm-hmm. That's basically what you said. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, let's jump on. Mm-hmm. And so people were still outside in COVID. We still, they going to the parties in Myrtle Beach. They might not be going here because it was shut down, but they was going. And I was like, Dr. Brown, you got to get on and say something. I put you on because I had to drop. Okay, this is a man who is very powerful in the medical community in North Carolina. He's getting ready to tell you something. Watch this. Choop. I'm like, Dr. Brown, well, you need to be this. You need to be 6 feet away, blah, blah, blah. And then Dr. Brown got on and said, okay, this is 6 feet.
That's right. That's right.
I'm on the couch. My wife is over there. Like, this is 6 feet.
That's right.
If you're doing
That's
so
right.
and so and
That's
so.
right. That's right.
And when we were able to do that, people were like, oh. I'm like, yeah, this is serious. And they didn't take me serious until I got the expert on.
That's right.
But how do you know Dr. Brown? Don't worry about it. I got this. That's my homeboy.
Yeah.
Secret signs.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
everybody
right.
ain't got to know everything.
Right.
Yeah, but that's true, and there's components, right? So
Right.
there's a pragmatic component, like
Right.
people literally need to know exactly what to do. That's right. This is 6 feet in real life because
Right.
we're not carrying a tape measure around, right?
Right.
That's
Same thing with coaching sports or anything else. You got to teach the exact skill.
Exactly.
So that right there was, that was valuable, and it was through all these different forums,
Right.
that one, other ones that I was doing, that we were actually able to reach so much of the community.
Correct.
And that's why, North Carolina, and we were a leader in that here. North Carolina was the second safest state to live in during the pandemic.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I
and
did
so,
not know that.
It was the ability to connect across a lot of different groups in different ways, in a manner that was really informative of exactly what do you do and what do you avoid. And it was a work in progress because all that guidance changed and that confused people a lot of times. But just putting it out there and putting it out there in a lot of different places and different ways is what made the difference.
It was super important.
Yeah.
And then like I said, when you sit down and you see you're doing what you do in medical, you're doing what you do in business, and I do what I do in radio and entertainment. But when we all three get together,
That's right.
And put the Voltron together. You know what I'm saying? When we put the Voltron together, then it's a little bit more powerful because you coming with the business sense. Oh, but if you do this model, I know for a fact, and I'm just trying to pay homage. I know for a fact there's a couple books that Brother Jackson got that I know if you read it from front 2 or 3 of them, you might be a millionaire. If you practice it.
If you practice it.
And
That's
I
right.
know for a fact, if I work and maybe I go to medical school and work up on Dr. Brown, I might be the man. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But as far as that concerned, when folks see that, when they see the merger, or when they see us all together in our respective roles, and then we're together, they're like, oh, this is serious.
Yes.
This is they're very serious about what they're talking about, and they're very, I guess, passionate as well. Whatever industry it is, but it always has to work together.
Right. You said something real important a few minutes ago. You used the word practice, right? Remember Dr. Tom Morris? He talked about life being a practice, right? And that was an aha moment for me. And he said something about the practice of practice, right? Because I've always wondered why they call the medical practice or the law practice. But that's exactly what it is. Each and every day as you face different scenarios, and all of a sudden, the different scenarios, you begin to fit them into fundamental constructs, because you can begin to connect the dots and say, well, okay, this is a little different, but it's so similar to this, and so this is how I resolve it. And this is so you begin to create those constructs that allow you to be able to solve problems, because fundamentally, you've created those solutions, because it comes back to the fundamentals, and the fundamental is reading, right?
Right.
And if you read, research says that the more and the better you can read, you can do math.
Yes.
And so it all ties
If
together.
you can do math, you can do science.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
And so we have to be able to get the word out around the importance of the fundamentals to the youth. And for instance, you hear young men talk about, well, I don't like math. I said, but do you play basketball? Yeah. So when you shoot that jump shot and you shoot it off the glass, that's a 45-degree angle, or it might be another angle depending on how close you are. Have you ever considered that?
Yeah.
Well, that jump shot is geometry.
Right.
And your brain is already doing it, so you know that you can do it, because you're making these moves on the basketball court. Now we need to show you how to get it done fundamentally on paper.
Right. Big. That's the intersection.
That's it.
That is the intersection. I tell you guys, we have blown through the hour. It has been fantastic. I feel like we could be here for hours and hours.
Yes.
But, we want to really thank our audience for sticking with us. And if you want to see us, obviously it's Unlikely Intersections on Facebook. It's also unlikelyintersection.com. It's Unlikely Intersections on YouTube. For me personally, it's Doc Phillip Brown on LinkedIn or docphillipbrown.com. And Terry?
You can find me on LinkedIn at Terry Jackson, PhD. You can find me all over Facebook as well. It's been a pleasure having Bigg B with us today.
Man, it's been an honor, man. Thank y'all, man.
And where do we find you? I mean, other than all over radio.
I'm Bigg B on Instagram, BIGGB 1906 on Instagram. I'm Bigg B on Facebook. You just type BIGG space B, or I think that's it. Is that it? I think that's it.
Well, we can
find email me.
Well, the radio station.
Yeah, you can. Oh, Coast 97.3. I'm on every day, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm on the air, but I'm there at 9 o'clock. Lord have mercy. But we have a good time. Man.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys at the next intersection.